Hey everyone, in today's video I'll be covering some sort of spoiler territory news about some of the new items and mechanics in Shadowkeep. Just wanted to put that out there before we get started. Yesterday, Bungie had a small segment on the Gamescom stage where they talked about artifacts, finishers, and showed off some new gameplay. They also dropped a cinematic trailer for Season of the Undying and a gameplay reveal for Shadowkeep, which you'll be seeing in the background. Shadowkeep is launching alongside Season of the Undying, which brings us our first new artifact, the Gate Lord's Eye. Artifacts, simply put, are limited time items that can be leveled up to grant you access to new perks in the form of mods. And one of the features of these mods is they don't have any affinity, meaning they can be slotted into any 2.0 armor regardless of their element. To unlock mods requires artifact points, and upon unlocking these mods, you're actually leveling up the artifact itself to a new tier or column. The higher the tier, the stronger the mod, and the more energy it's going to cost you to add to your armor. The final column in the artifact is the strongest tier of mods that were described as being on the level of exotics. We don't know where artifact points come from yet, but it seems like you're limited to 12 of them, meaning you're going to have to make some tough choices when it comes to what to unlock. Once the season ends, it's not clear what's going to happen to the mods you've already earned, but we do know that the artifact will be replaced by next seasons, whatever that's going to be. The first column on this artifact seems to have perks related to Glimmer, possibly increasing Glimmer gains from all sources and then increasing Glimmer from what looks like Vex enemies. However, the second column consists of different ammo type mods, dictated by whether their shape is a circle, square, or triangle. These are weapon mods that can be seemingly applied to exotics if I'm looking at this image correctly, because that definitely looks like the exotic hand cannon from the previous trailer. The first mod in this column that we gotta look at was anti-barrier rounds, which when equipped on a weapon says that it's gonna turn the ammo into shield-piercing rounds that are designed to bypass combatant defenses. And this mod is strong against barrier champions, whatever that means. And this particular mod can be applied onto auto rifles and submachine guns. Then we have anti-barrier hand cannon, which is pretty much the same thing as before, it just can be put on hand cannons this time. And the final one in this column that we got to peek at was overload rounds. Designated by the circle icon, these say that uninterrupted fire grants bullets that cause disruption, delaying ability recharge rate and lowering combat damage output. This mod is strong against overload champions. So this mod for autos and SMGs is basically allowing you to add the disruption perk to those weapons, which is pretty neat. In the next column we have the enhanced loader perks. Hand cannons, SMGs, bows, fusion rifles, and auto rifles are all there, and once these mods are claimed, you do not have to match them with a certain elemental affinity. They can go in any armor, whether it be Void, Solar, or Arc, which is awesome. The next column looks like it has some melee and grenade perks. Not sure just yet though, as we didn't get a peek at those in the reveal. But the final column is where things get really interesting. You have mods like Heavy Finisher that require 7 energy to slot into your armor, so clearly these are top tier ones and going to be very costly. And Heavy Finisher allows you to generate heavy ammo for your entire team, but it costs half of your super to do it. Then we've got things like Oppressive Darkness, which adds a weakening effect to Void grenades. I imagine it'll be something like Hammer Strike or Tractor Cannon, which will make Bubble Titan even stronger. Then Arc Battery says you get an overshield and reduced cooldown for your Arc class ability. And the last one we gotta look at was the Thunder Coil, which grants bonus damage for Arc melee abilities and refunds your super upon using a finisher. Some of those sound very strong, possibly even game-breaking, but we don't know how hard it's going to be to unlock these mods or how strong our Guardians will be come October, so it's a little early to make judgments. It looks like there is also an option to reset your artifact, which if I had to guess, will mean that you're going to keep your already unlocked mods, but you're going to have to re-earn artifact points and re-level up the artifact to unlock more new ones. So if you're someone who plays a lot and you fully upgraded your artifact like a month into the season, you could quite possibly just reset it and earn some of the mods you didn't get on your first run through. The last noteworthy part of artifacts is the power boost, which is a bump to your overall power, not your gear individually. And what this is meant for is to allow players who don't run a lot of pinnacle endgame activities to keep up with everyone else in terms of levels. If you play the game a lot, you likely won't have to even think about this, but if you're someone who doesn't do raids or Iron Banner all that often, this is an alternative way to stay on the same page with everyone else. Some of these mods seem to be pushing finishers pretty hard, so let's recap what those are all about. A finisher is a sweet move you can do to most low health enemies, except for bosses. Once you see this little icon above their head, it means you can go in for a finisher. Now the trade-off here is that finishers, while really cool, they do cost a little bit of super energy, but using the mod I just mentioned, you can get that energy back. Of course, finishers have their own pros and cons. It allows you to finish off an enemy in style while getting benefits from certain exotics or mods to help yourself or your team, but it also leaves you exposed since you can be killed while in the finishing animation. It kind of reminds me of the assassinations from Halo Reach. Hopefully we get to see a variation of showstopper medals in PvP. I think the usefulness of the finishing move will mostly depend on how difficult the content is and how important your super is to you. We don't know exactly how strong players are going to be in Shadowkeep and how valuable their supers may be. It is cool that you can spec your Guardian to be all about finishing moves though, with multiple mods for it and an exotic coming in Shadowkeep called Assassin's Cowl. A new Hunter exotic helmet that's exotic perk says, defeating a Guardian with a melee attack or a PvE combatant with a finisher grants invisibility and restores a portion of health and shields. If you're someone who's really in love with finishers, this is obviously going to be the perfect pairing, but it's probably going to be mid to lower tier since there's already a handful of exotics that can restore your health, although invisibility on melee kills or finishing moves does sound handy for really tough content. Unless you're having a dedicated finisher in PvE, it's probably not worth the slot with things like Liar's Handshake or other super regen exotics. Another exotic that was teased in the Bungie press kit was Phoenix Cradle. This exotic is for Bottom Tree Sunbreaker, and its exotic perk says, your Sun Warrior benefits last twice as long after creating a sunspot. On top of that, allies who pass through your sunspots will gain the benefit of Sun Warrior. Standing in a sunspot is already a 20% damage buff for 10 seconds? And standing in a sunspot reduces the cooldown of your abilities, so this is going to be a really strong one. I love Sunbreaker, it's all I used in Destiny 1 from Taking King on, and I'm glad Bottom Tree, which is already a decent subclass, is getting an exotic that makes it even more viable. I already see this becoming a must-have exotic for the subclass. I don't really see anything else you'd want to pair with Bottom Tree. I just hope this exotic isn't replacing what could have been a buff for this tree instead. There was no Warlock exotic shown yet, which is kind of odd, but we did get another peek at Monte Carlo, the Destiny 1 auto rifle. This means so far from the trailers we've seen an exotic auto rifle, an exotic hand cannon, an exotic heavy bow, an exotic trace rifle, and I believe an exotic machine gun, along with one exotic per character so far. Another thing we can spot in the trailer is the Garden of Salvation raid armor for both the Warlock and the Titan. It looks like it's got some glowing parts and you can kind of see that Vex Radiolaria pod right there in the middle of the Titan's armor. It's kind of hard to get a good idea of what these exactly look like though, but I just hope they really capture the theme of the Vex and the Black Garden well. Thanks to some more images from the Bungie press kit, we know raid mods are also returning as seen on this helmet, which features a mod called Enhanced Voltaic Ammo Collector. This mod, which is only active in the Garden of Salvation raid, greatly increases the chance of finding heavy ammo while you have the Voltaic Overflow buff, whatever that is. Interesting note, it says multiple copies of this mod can in fact be stacked to increase the benefit. Not sure how I feel about stacking raid mods though, since I'm so used to putting a single raid mod on even since year 1 with a Leviathan gear. Who knows though, it could be awesome. Taking a look at the Shadowkeep map, we can see a variety of activities. We've got a new Moonstrike called the Scarlet Keep, which starts at 750 power. Judging by that power recommendation, this could very well be the first mission we do in the campaign. There's also some public events going on. Eris Morn is at the bottom there, and 3 big activity markers are spread around the map, which are called Nightmare Hunts. These are 3-player activities with different difficulty levels. The one that was teased was the Servitude Nightmare Hunt. It says Hunt Zydron, the Gate Lord. So these are likely to be replayable missions, maybe even woven into the campaign or sort of like adventures after it. But I'm really hoping they're like arena-style boss fights that are really fun to play, something like Prison of Elders, but in different locations. The challenge on here says that you must complete 3 Nightmare Hunts to be rewarded with Tier 1 powerful gear. Now, we don't know what this means. It could be that certain activities only drop lower tier gear, and higher tier stuff comes from endgame activities like raids. That's just my guess anyway. Taking a look inside, the options of this activity shows us 3 different difficulties: Adept, Hero, and Legend. Adept is recommended 860 power with the Air Superiority modifier. The hero difficulty is recommended 920 power with air superiority, both a champion's overload and champion's barrier buff, which sound like positive, helpful modifiers, and torrent of Zydron, which is probably a bad modifier. And then we have legend, which is the last highest difficulty, which is recommended 960 power, and it has all previous modifiers plus match game, and your equipment is locked. One thing to note is both the Adept and Hero versions have matchmaking on, but Legend does not. What's interesting is it actually says matchmaking on or matchmaking off, so maybe Bungie has implemented some kind of system where they can either enable or disable matchmaking on the fly, which would be pretty helpful for once the main group of dedicated players has moved on to the next season, and maybe it gets kind of harder to find people to do these activities with. Activating matchmaking would be a good idea. Some other things you may have missed throughout these trailers and reveals was the new Striker mission in the Pyramidion. You can see it says Nightfall right there on the screen, so that's pretty cool. We get a new Pyramidion strike, a strike that looks like it takes place on Io with some Taken. It looks like that strike that was glitched into some players a while back. And we also have a new dungeon coming in Shadowkeep, which I think was teased in one of the previous trailers, but we didn't get any more information on that. And of course, the Black Garden Raid, which is launching on Saturday, October 5th. What's interesting about this is that in the description of the Season of the Undying trailer, it says the new Vex theme season starts on the day the raid goes live. So it's entirely possible, like with how beating the Last Wish raid kicked off the Dreaming City curse, that completing the Black Garden Raid is going to kick off the Vex invasions on the moon and possibly other planets. Thoughts? So how am I feeling about all this? Well, there's still plenty of stuff that we don't know yet, but at first glance, the mods that come from artifacts seem very strong, but seem to be priced accordingly, with some of those top tier mods costing 7 energy, which is almost double what some of the most expensive regular mods cost. If you're going to stack up an entire armor set with these top tier mods, then you're not really going to be able to use any other mods or get a lot of any other benefits, since you're going to pretty much be using up all your energy on these mods, so it does seem like it has some sort of balance there. I like the seasonal progression of the artifact. I think it's going to add a nice new chase to the game, give you something to keep working towards outside of just chasing loot or leveling up your power. I am curious to know what exactly resetting does though. One thing I'm pretty excited about is I love they're bringing back difficulty tiers. This is something I brought up in my own videos. I loved having difficulty options in Destiny 1 and different ways to challenge myself. My only question is, are they going to make this pinnacle endgame loot worth it? A better question, is there even going to be any Nightmare Hunt specific loot or dungeon specific loot? Because if not, bringing back these harder difficulty tiers was kind of a waste. If you're going to have harder content, you need to have loot that's enticing enough to make you want to play it. Otherwise, no one's going to bother. A perfect example of this is Heroic Menagerie. Look, no one's bothering to go back and regrind that because there's no pinnacle loot from it. You have to have that top tier, rare endgame loot to make these higher difficulties worth it. Something I am worried about that wasn't really brought up in this reveal specifically is Word of Dawn, because as far as we know, you can get Armor of Light and Weapons of Light, which both seem to be intrinsic to the Word of Dawn bubble. Then you can also toss on Helm of Saint 14 for Blessing of Light, and then you can use the Artifact mod to turn your Suppression Grenade into a Weakening Effect Grenade that essentially applies Melting Point to an enemy. Now that's a very strong subclass. That's a healing buff, a damage buff, a debuff that you can apply at range, and you have a safety bubble where you're pretty much invulnerable. Unless they have some changes planned to the way Blessing of Light or Armor of Light works, there's a very high chance that Titans will be stuck to this loadout like Warlocks are stuck to Well of Radiance, which is concerning because we'll be right back where we started in Destiny 1 with Titans being encouraged or almost forced to run bubble in every raid, for example. I am curious to see if any other subclasses get buffed to maybe make them more enticing and try and avoid making bubble the only thing everyone plays. They did mention that some of the Void ones were getting tuned for Shadowkeep, things like Bottom Tree Night Stalker, but I'd also love to see things like Bottom Tree Golden Gun, Thunder Crash, Bottom Tree Nova Bomb, and Stormcaller all get buffs as well. But that's pretty much all the info I have for today and all the thoughts on this reveal. Everything is looking good when it comes to Shadowkeep, and I can't wait to see where the new story takes us. The Vex cutscene that was leaked like 2 years ago is finally out, and it looks incredible. I'm very excited for the new direction and to learn more about this new season. And remember, Cross Save goes live tomorrow, August 21st, so hopefully I'll see some of you out there in the wild. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you all soon.